This is a satellite. This is your plane. Your plane's flying along. This satellite's like, hey, I got that plane in my circle. And you have another satellite. You're still flying along. And this satellite's like, hey, I got that plane in my circle too. But now all this other area gets X'd out because you're not in those circles. And you have a third satellite. The more satellites you have, the smaller those circles keep getting. And that third satellite's like, hey, I got him in my circle too. So all of this gets X'd out. Then you got your fourth satellite. Your fourth satellite's like, hey, I got that plane in my circle too. And all this other area gets X'd out. And then you have four satellites saying, hey, that plane is right there. And that gives you your 3D dimension. So that gives you your vertical. So I don't think I could draw a 3D Earth, but say that's the Earth. That gives you your lateral, left to right, your vertical, and your altitude. And that's how basic GPS works. Now, if you wanted something that's called RAIN, and whenever you're explaining anything, you want to see what it stands for, and it stands for Autonomous Integrity Monitoring. I forgot what the R stands for, but you can Google that real quick. It stands for receiver. RAIN gives you a fifth satellite, or it requires a fifth satellite, which also says, hey, I got that plane in my circle. And that fifth satellite monitors the integrity of the other four satellites. Now we could dive in a little bit more deeper. If we have fault detection exclusion, we need a sixth satellite, which also says, hey, I got that plane in my circle. And that sixth satellite allows you to have one of these satellites fail on you, and you still have 5 satellites working, and you retain RAIN. So you need 5 satellites for RAIN, 4 satellites for your 3-dimensional location, your lateral, vertical, and your altitude. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, whenever we're explaining anything, we say what the Waas stands for. It stands for Wide Area Augmentation System. And it works similar to a regular GPS, but it has more components to it. So let's draw the Earth. There's the Earth. Let's draw the equator, right? Equator is always hot, so we're going to use the red. Then we have a satellite. Actually, have a satellite constantly broadcasting a signal onto Earth. We'll draw back our 5 satellites for RAIN. Right? 4 satellites give us a 3-dimension of where our location is. 5th satellite. And our 6th satellite. Constantly broadcasting a signal. Then our plane's flying along. And our plane picks up the signals, and the circles keep getting smaller and smaller. Then we triangulate our location, 3D rendering, and then we have RAIN and we have Waas because we have 6 satellites. Now, the way that Waas works, let's draw it here in the equator. This is where it gets a little bit complicated. So the way that Waas works is that satellites give a signal to our plane. Our onboard GPS receives that signal. They're blasting that signal all over Earth. This satellite can't blast a signal on this side of Earth, but this one can. So our onboard GPS receives the signal from the satellites. Then here on Earth, we have monitoring stations. And these monitoring stations also happen to receive those same signals and pick them up. Those monitoring stations send that signal to a master station. Here in the US, I don't even know how to draw the US, but something like that, I think. Whatever. Florida's down there somewhere. Here in the US, we have 3 master stations. Let's just say, not really, but let's just say we have one in California, one in Texas, and one here in New York. But I don't know their exact locations, but there's one in the east, one in the west, and one down south, and nothing in Canada. And then these master stations do a bunch of computing, checking the algorithm and all the signals that it's receiving from the monitoring stations, and then they send that up to an uplink station. That uplink station then sends that signal to the 3, or one of the 3, whichever one's closer, geostationary satellites. That geostationary satellite then sends that signal back to Earth and is broadcasting those signals back to Earth. Our onboard GPS also picks up that signal, and then it compares the signal that it gets from the geostationary satellite to the signal that it gets from the original GPS, does its own interpolation and calculation, and gives us a more precise location. One thing I forgot to mention is how the stationary satellites work. And what it is that the Earth is constantly spinning. These satellites are located on the equator. If we were to look up and we could physically see them, like with a big telescope, that satellite is going to be moving with the Earth. So if we were to look up in that location, that satellite's always going to be there. We would go to sleep, wake up the next morning, eat our breakfast, and look at the telescope and look at that location, the satellite's still going to be there. That's why it's called geostationary, because it's always there in that location. We can't physically see it, but if we had a telescope big enough, we'd be able to see it. So what that does is that it gives us an exact location as to where this satellite is at all times. Now, these satellites are spinning through the Earth, and they might be changing in altitude. It might be changing exactly as to where they're at, but the 3 geostationary satellites that we have are always in that location at all times. And that, my friend, is how GPS and Waas works.